The sea has spread out as far as the eye could see. It looked absolutely flat from up there, frozen in boundless tranquility. The seemingly motionless surface was crisscrossed only by a chaotic web of currents, like trails blazed by hard-working ants. In the distance, the deep blue of the sea hugged the cloudless cerulean skies. Vast meadows, sloping gently to the water, separated the couple from them. Only 3 horses, wagging lazily and pensively nibbling on the sunburned grass, could be seen around. The end of the meadows disappeared from sight, but Rosen and Nani knew it plunged headlong to the jagged rocks on which the waves crushed. I wrote this almost 12 years ago, and it's a short fragment of a book of mine. A book that doesn't exist, because I never finished it. I started writing it with overwhelming enthusiasm, but somewhere down the road it became a burden, until I realized I didn't actually want to write it anymore. And mind you, I've loved books ever since I can remember. For instance, there was this short sci-fi comic book that I wanted my mom to read to me every day. And whenever she skipped some parts, I'd go, "Oh no, Mom, here you missed this and that." I learned to read when I was very little, and I devoured all the books I could get my hands on. I would read anything. It even got to the point where some speech therapists advised my parents to hide all books from my sight for a while, as I had started to stutter, because my thoughts were moving faster than my speech, and they didn't want me to overload myself with even further information and emotions. And my parents did just that. They hid all of my books. On top of that, back then I was spending large chunks of the summer with my grandparents in their house just outside Sofia, where there weren't supposed to be a lot of books to start with, but I guess my folks had nevertheless told Grandma and Grandpa to hide them from me, just to find me reading a volume of Lermontov's long narrative poem, The Novice, which I had found who knows where. I was probably 5 back then. Anyway, so when I was a child, I loved reading books, but as I got older, with time, I gradually started reading less and less of them. Then, as I wasn't sure what exactly to do with my life, and because it was fashionable at the time, I started studying international economic relations in the university, and afterwards I delved into marketing and advertising. I spent on and off a decade in that field, changing jobs, losing some, until I was completely fed up with it. So there I was, wondering what to do next. I just knew I didn't want it to have anything to do with marketing. Yeah. In the meantime, I had occasionally written this and that, but just for me, just for fun. And then I remember the day, it was August 1st, 2011, my wife said to me as we were having lunch, "Why don't you devote yourself to writing? You have a knack for it, you're good at it. But only do it if you feel this really is your thing." And then it dawned on me. This really was my thing. Never before had I felt it with such certainty. One which would give me the satisfaction that I'm finally doing something meaningful and enjoyable too. It was like I had been holding my breath for so long, and now I could finally breathe fully in. Don't you just love these types of moments? They don't come by often, but they're totally worth the wait. You suddenly see everything clearly, and you know exactly what to do with your life. So, I jumped headfirst into this new adventure, determined to make a career out of it. I felt light, I felt optimistic, and I soon realized that when you start doing your thing, doors begin to open. For me, they opened really quickly. Even though I had no journalist background, I started writing for various print and online media, first as a freelancer, then as part of their in-house teams. Then, naturally, I started thinking about moving to the next level, about writing a book. I came up with an idea for a novel, which I thought was pretty good, the intertwining stories of several people. But it was again my wife who actually gave me the nudge to start writing it. It was on the morning of my birthday, July 14th, 2013, when I woke up in our hotel room by the seaside. And instead of a gift, she gave me a handwritten scroll with which she inspired me to start writing the truest book of my life. And so I did. And in these early days, it brought me joy. But then, gradually, indecisiveness, toxic perfectionism, and self-blame crept in. I thought that every spare moment in which I didn't write or think about the book was a wasted moment. So I was forcing myself to do it. And thus, what was initially a product of desire became an obligation, which possessed my entire life and being. I was thinking about it day and night. I referenced everything to it, and everything referenced me to it. Every mention of a book, or even of a good story, just reminded me of how I wasn't finishing mine, and how I should have been doing it. Every flaming sunset or a full moon was not a view to savor, but a call to channel this beauty into my book. I couldn't even enjoy my own writing for the various media channels because each good text and each compliment that I received for it just made me think, okay, use this energy right now to write your book. Crazy, right? This went for quite some time until I finally reached the point when I realized I wanted the book to be already written, but I didn't actually want to write it anymore. This obsession was starting to affect even my everyday work because I wasn't giving it enough time and attention, being constantly distracted by the book. Yeah, these were difficult times. And this book, it certainly had a role in me losing 2 back-to-back jobs with online media. Actually, the second one was really short and I couldn't stand it, to be honest. So, it was the end of 2015 and I was asking myself, where to next? On one hand, I needed to keep bringing money into the family without abandoning writing. And on the other, this looked like a good opportunity to focus on my book, which I had to write. So, I devised a solid plan. I would dedicate my 9 to 6 to freelance writing for some other online media. And in the evening, I would write my book. It sounded logical, well-structured, guaranteed to work. But then I asked myself, what am I doing? I remember I was in the bathroom. Actually, a lot of my best ideas have come there. It sure helps when you take your mind off things. And it occurred very clearly to me. What I really want is to be in a print magazine. That's the kind of writing I love most. And lo and behold, shortly after, in the days between Christmas and New Year, I came across the pilot issue of a magazine like no other around. I had seen something similar only in my childhood, when magazines were, excuse me for the cliche, a window to the world for me. And I said to myself, this is the media I want to write for. And again, things moved very quickly. I contacted the people behind the magazine. I wrote several articles for it, which were well received. And within a few short months, I moved all the way from a freelance writer for the magazine to its editor-in-chief. And I loved every moment of my work. It was exactly as I had dreamt it to be. I could write long, in-depth articles and edit those of other writers on things that really interested me, like travel, fascinating people, exciting stories, art, science. And it brought me joy, fulfillment, and a deep sense of meaning. I was happy, probably the happiest I've ever been in a professional context. It ended abruptly around 2.5 years later, when our publisher gathered the team and announced he's shutting down the magazine. But I just knew that I couldn't let something so valuable disappear like that. So I did everything possible to bring the magazine back to life. And since I didn't have the necessary funds to restart it on my own, I talked to a media group about publishing it with me as its editor-in-chief, but the CEO turned me down. Sometime later, during this period of uncertainty, when the road ahead for me was, to say the least, blurry, I received a job offer to be the host of a TV show. It sounded good, it was in the media field again, and it would have given me financial stability in these difficult times. But I decided that I wanted to focus on my magazine, which didn't even exist at the time. So I rejected the job offer. And lo and behold, Shortly after, I got a call from that same CEO who had rejected me months before. She said, "I've reconsidered. Let's start publishing the magazine." So I had done it once more. I had stated clearly what I wanted. I'd set my intentions on rebuilding the magazine when the chances for it looked very slim, and I reaped the rewards. I was happy again. This time it lasted less than a year. A new CEO came to the media group, and to cut the long story short, he offered me a contract which threatened me with losing control over the magazine I had fought so hard to bring back. It was basically sign the contract or we stop publishing the magazine. So once again I had the option of choosing the financial stability or otherwise having the magazine shut down for the second time without any realistic prospects of bringing it back. But again I listened to what I really wanted. And although it was for the magazine to continue, I knew it had to be on my terms, following my vision. So, once again with the help of my wife, I decided to jump into the unknown. Why do I say unknown? Well, first we had to learn from scratch how to be publishers. Sure, I was the editor-in-chief, but there is a long way from creating a magazine to actually turning it into a sustainable business. Second, we were a totally independent enterprise. We were not part of a media group on whose resources we could count. We weren't financed by any company, foundation, or a rich businessman. We managed to find some money just to put out one issue of the magazine, hoping things would roll from there. Third, our small family company's registration came out on Friday, the 13th of March 2020. Does that date ring a bell? It was the day when the COVID state of emergency was first announced in Bulgaria. And fourth, shortly beforehand, the entire print media distribution system in our country had broken down. So we didn't know how the magazine would be distributed, who would buy it, and if anyone would want to advertise in it. Everyone said we were crazy to start publishing a magazine alone in such times. But we did it nevertheless, because we sincerely wanted it and believed in it, as we still do. 5 years and 50 issues later, the magazine is still family-owned and still going strong. It has grown to include a standalone website, a podcast, different series of events. Now, don't get me wrong, it's been hard, sometimes really hard, and it still is. But nothing can overshadow the feeling that you're doing exactly what you wanted and exactly how you wanted it. I could only wonder what I would be now if in just one of these testing situations which I've described, I didn't choose that which I really wanted. I know one thing, I probably wouldn't be here talking to you. But since I am here, let me give you some unsolicited and obvious advice. Go for what you truly want. Not because I told you so, or you read it in some self-help book. Not because you look cooler and people will respect you more. Do it for your own sake. Start by actually realizing what that thing is. I know this part could be tricky, but it's probably the most important one. Just be honest with yourself. Then state it. State what you want. Think about it. Say it out loud. Write it down if necessary. And then act upon it. I promise you, sooner or later, you'll reap the rewards. Thank you.